Awesome. Well, um, as Nick mentioned, we're talking about strategic business planning today, specifically around planning, hiring, and we'll do some emphasis around training, but we're really going to focus on that nitty-gritty specific that we get questions on all the time on, how much a percentage of my budget should go to this, and how do I plan on how many agents I need? And so if you have a bigger goal this year than you did last year, you're going to learn a lot about how to get to that goal today strategically. And so I'm going to just be, I guess, sort of interviewing Nick along the way, so that we can cover a lot of the common questions that we hear around strategic planning. If you don't know us, I'll give you an introduction here in a second. Both Nick and I are from Reside, and we have a lot of really great people inside of our organization: John Rhoda, Tim Moldenhauer, Jessica Boswell. A lot of people saying great things about the contribution we've made to their business and that they've made to their business with us. And so we're excited to share some of the things that are working inside of our organization with you guys today. So just really quickly, I'd love to introduce Nick and myself. If you don't know Nick, Nick is one of our co-founders of Reside. Not only is he an expert consultant for John Cheplak Select Coaching, but his team does over 500 units a year. He's been top Real Trends team for multiple years, and he has multiple seven-figure businesses. He's the real deal. So it's quite an honor to get to pick your brain and to share what you're doing well with all of these people here today. And if you don't know me, my name is Mia. I'm the director of team production inside of Reside. I do coach several of our team owners inside of our organization, but truly my big rock, my passion place, one thing, is working with agents. So I train all of the agents inside of our organization and focus on conversion competency and production. And I've worked with thousands of agents now over my years of coaching. So here's what you're going to be learning today. Give me 1 second. I'm going to be stopping periodically to cough, and I'll mute myself so that you don't have to listen to it because it's not fun. But anyways, so today, three main things we're going to focus on here. Number one, strategic planning. We want to share with you some of the key metrics that are going to create scalable growth for your team. The second thing we're going to focus on is how to set your budget. So creating a budget specifically around marketing and payroll so that you can position your team for a profitable year. And then we're also going to touch on the key hires. Who and how much should you be hiring that person for, and for those key roles within your organization? Nick, before we dive in, is there anything that you want to elaborate on before I start asking questions about strategic planning?
Yeah, for sure. So my goal by the end of this webinar, we'll be done in less than an hour, is that you're going to have three key strategic items that you're going to implement and initiate over the next quarter, and three over the next year. And these strategic things could be a key hire. It could be a marketing strategy. It could be agent accountability measures and systems. It can be agent recruiting systems. So we're going to dive into that. Everyone's going to have a little bit different focus point, and I'm going to help you get clarity on that today. I think if you guys don't know who I am, Mia did a great job of that. I am passionate about real estate teams. Building real estate teams. I still maintain my team in Wenatchee, Washington, in a marketplace of 70,000 people because I like being in the trenches. I like implementing and testing out proven systems. I don't do theory. I only prove things out. So everything I tell you today is something that I do or one of my clients at Reside does, and it's proven. No theory whatsoever. In fact, I signed up 9 agents so far this year to my team. We have a team of about 25. We're going to have a team of 34 already because I noticed people needed new agents and they needed to bring agents on, and agents that are young to the industry, hungry, and with high upside. I look for appetite and attitude. Appetite, attitude, and aptitude. So that is kind of like how hungry they are, right? How bad do they want it? And what's their upside? What's their competency? What's their IQ like? And when you can find those type of people, you're going to win, and you're going to win big, because there's always more talent outside of the industry than within the industry. Remember that there's always more talent outside the industry than in the industry. So I want to be bringing agents on from within the industry, already licensed, because they can join and make an impact sooner. But I also need to be developing and looking for great talent outside of the industry. My top 5 agents come from outside the industry: UPS, AT&T, Verizon, HP. And I'm in a rural marketplace, and I'm finding people from corporate America. And never underestimate how bad someone's willing to change their career because they're not fulfilled and they're not being challenged, and they're willing to relocate. I was just talking to a Reside client yesterday. She was doing some recruiting, and she was a little bit discouraged because the people that were applying were an hour and a half, 2 hours away from her location. And I said, well, did you call them? She said, no, because I don't want agents that live in that marketplace. And I said, did you call them and ask them if they'd be willing to relocate? She's like, I gotta go. She got off the phone. She made 3 phone calls, and it turns out one of the 3 is willing to relocate for the right opportunity. That's who you want. You want the person that has skin in the game. You want the person that's willing to uproot and move for opportunity. 100%,
Yeah.
right? Like, even if you're a real estate agent in another marketplace and the average sales price is 300,000, if they move to your marketplace, do they increase their average price point immediately? Like, your value proposition could just be your average sales price. And that has nothing to do with split, right? So I'm just giving you nuggets on ways to attract convert agents right now based on average sales price. Okay, Mia, let's keep going.
That was good. That was so good. And be prepared for a lot of nuggets like that from Nick today. I'm going to hold space for tangents because that's where the gold is lying. But we do have some structure to our training today, our webinar today. And the first thing we want to tackle is that strategic planning. We are going to dive in a little bit into the hiring. So you'll see some overlap with the recruiting conversation, but we get to go a little bit deeper in those key hires there. So number one is, Nick and I discussed this yesterday. The first thing we need to talk about is creating your sales goal and identifying the number of units needed to hit your goal. So we're going to unpack that with you here in a second. The second key point is recruiting. We do need to assess real numbers from the year prior to determine the number of agents. I'm excited to hear you unpack this because yesterday when we talked about it, Nick, it was so good of like, don't anticipate all of a sudden a major blow up in their, doubling their business all of a sudden. So we'll talk about that. And then third is the KPIs, selecting really simple, measurable, and achievable metrics to track that keep your agents focused on the lead measures. So Nick, let's start with creating your sales goal. Yesterday when we were reviewing this, we thought the 3 most important things that we could discuss here in creating your sales goal would be number of units, your revenue goal, and your hiring needs. And for the number of units, we talked about basing that on your current roster and last year's performance. Can you unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I do, and I do this every single year in my business, and it's not too late, being January 15th, is I take my current roster, right? I take my current roster and I look at it. And I, next to each person on my sales roster, I put a unit that I believe they're going to sell based on last year's numbers. I in my experience, you're not going to see an increase of more than 10%. In fact, you're more likely to see a regression than addition to most your sales agents. If I have an agent, now if I look at my roster, so everyone here, take your roster and look at your roster. Of your roster, which agents were joined your team in the last 12 months? Which agents joined your team in the last 12 months? They likely will double their sales. So if Mia joined my team in June and she had 4 sales, I'm going to put 8 sales for year 2. John did 1 sale. I'm going to put 2, right? Susan's been on my team for 5 years. She did 28. I'm going to put 28. And then I'm going to add up all those units plus my production if I'm in production. and I'm going to, that's my sale, my goal. If I were not to add any more agents to my roster, I cannot plan, I cannot budget more than that without growing and bringing people on. What a big mistake people do is they look at their roster and they are optimistic that Mia is going to go from 30 to 60, right? Or John's going to go from 4 to 24. And then they start budgeting around the growth of their people, okay? But what they don't anticipate is the agent that does 50 every year gets cancer, or their husband gets sick, or their husband loses their job, or they get burnt out. So even on the top end, you're vulnerable, right? So you're expecting your top people to continue to do that until they don't, or maybe or you lose somebody. So what I need to know is I need to get really honest with myself that I can't expect any more production. The growth will come from growing the people of the organization and bringing people on. Okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what's my goal. So let's say I look at my roster based on the last 12 months. And guess what, Mia? If I'm wrong about those projections and they outperform it,
That's a great
then
problem to have.
that's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
That's a great problem to have. So let's just imagine I got 10 agents and I add that up and it's 100. It's 100. Okay. What's my goal for 2025? Because I'm ambitious. I want to grow. I want to build this thing. And let's say it's 200. I'm going to double my business, double my unit count. Okay. And for you, I've seen some people that was 500. So maybe it was 500 and then it's 600, right? Or 700 units or 1,000 units. It doesn't matter. Okay. Then I look at that and I go, okay, 200 units. Okay. The gap is 100 units. The gap is 100 units. How many agents do I need to bring on into production to sell 100 units? This is going to tell me my hiring. How many agents? So I'm at number 3 already, right? And that's going to tell me. So how do I know what how many agents I need to hire? Well, looking at your first year agents, how many homes do your agents sell in their first year? Right? So you can look at your roster and go, my first year agents sell 6 homes on average, right? Or 5 homes on average. Okay, maybe it's 10. So if I need to sell 100 homes and it's 5, I need 20 agents. If I need to increase 100 units and I average 10 units per agent, first year agents, not see, this is another mistake. People take their per agent productivity for their entire company, but they included Mia who did 50 sales a year, and it skews the averages. I want to know what the average is for a first year agent on my team, right? And I need that number. So if it's 10, I need 10 agents. Okay. So let's just put a pin in that right now. You have any questions on that, Mia?
Yes, we in the hiring needs, when we talk about how long should I plan on giving an agent to show that production when we're looking at first year production? Like how long should I give a new agent that I recruit?
Yeah. So when you bring on an agent, it's important to understand that one KPI that you need to look at is time to first sale. And time to first sale is really important because if I can't get Mia a deal in her first 90 days, chances are she's not going to make it because she runs out of money. I mean, most of your agents are living paycheck to paycheck like most Americans. So they need to survive in order to thrive. So I need to get them a deal. But I don't want to give them such low-hanging fruit that they don't learn how to do it properly. So we have a catch-22 here. We also don't want to make it hard on them. A lot of team leaders give them the oldest, worst database leads on the planet and tell them to make 200 phone calls a day. Okay, are you looking for certain failure out of these people? Are you trying to make them hate their job? right? I understand grit. I understand perseverance, but at the same time, they need to have a win. The, if you're giving people online leads, how long do you, if you were to buy an online lead, how long before that person transacts? Put it in the chat bar. How long, if you buy an online lead, statistically, when are they going to close? Right? We know this. Everyone, we know this. What is this? 12 months, 9 months, 12 months. Okay, so you're giving people online leads and we want them to sell a home in 90 days or 30 days. But I'm reading your notes and you're telling me that lead that I'm delivering to Mia is going to take 12 months. So how long am I willing to keep Mia on? I'm willing to keep her on as long as it takes to convert a lead, as long as Mia's doing the work required to convert a lead. You're shaking your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, can Mia go 12 months working a lead before she gives up or has to get another job? I hope not. I hope not. So I need to hold her accountable to those actions. So if the person's doing the actions, the day in, day out actions that I ask them to do, I'm going to hold on to them as long as they're willing to do that. And chances are they're going to sell a home in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days because they're going to answer that phone call or get lucky or find a hot one, right? We're going to make up for it in volume. Because leads are like a bell curve, right? Most of our leads are 12 months away. Some of them are 5 years away on the far right of the bell curve. And some people on the far left of the bell curve are now. So I'm willing to keep people on definitely 90 days. If they're doing the right actions, 180 days. I'm willing to do it. I'm absolutely willing.
180 days seems to be the sweet spot because there's enough evidence at this point to see, will they be 80% of the time consistent to the activities? And I think it's important to mention that I'm not looking for perfection in that. I'm looking for as much consistency as we can get out of them and setting them up for success.
And we're going to give you some KPIs at the end of this. And
Yeah.
then, and just to give you the number one KPI I'm looking for on a new agent is showing up.
Mm-hmm.
Showing up. If they're showing up to the meetings, if they're showing up to the trainings, if they're showing up to their call times and their desk times and their prospecting hours, oh, you get away with you get a lot of rope with me. I have 3 standards on my team. And this goes to meeting standards. 3 standards to stay on my team. Number 1, core value standards. Right? Are you living up to our core values? Are you a good person, or are you a cancer and you're toxic? Because as they become less and less productive, or they don't see success, they may change their tone. They may change their values. They might show you how they are when the going gets tough. In the first 30 days, they're excited, exuberant, energy, right? But if they, just watch them. Number 2 is procedures-based training. Are you following the SOPs? Are you following the rhythms, the training schedules? When you do get a client or talk to someone on the phone, are you following the lead management process, the CRM workflows? When you write an offer, is it good? Are you conscientious? Are you asking for help? Are you dotting your I's and crossing your T's? If you're terrible at paperwork, I have a hard problem. So the second standard is procedural discipline or procedure standards. The third one is results, sales. At the end of the day, that trumps almost everything except for core values, because you could sell 50 homes a year and be a cancer and I got to let you go. Right? So I look at all 3 standards, right? I look at all 3 standards. So let's go back to creating the sales goal.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's actually a perfect segue for the next slide here, which is recruiting. And when we could talk about, who's actually going to be joining the team. So number 1 is, how many agents do you need to hit the sales goal? You gave us a baseline, but what I'd love to see you elaborate on here is, the margin of error percentage. And then also understanding that gap in units. So what's the gap in units from the year prior to my goal this year? And as I'm planning, what should I be thinking about? And then you touched on this a little bit, but I think now we can elaborate a little further on that average first year agent productivity. So that margin of safety, what's that time to first sale and how should I account for that in my projections?
Yeah, so we understand in our example, we want to go from 100 units to 200 units. So we're
Mhm.
going to add, and I average about 10 units per agent, let's say. So I need 10 agents. Okay. What I can do, so you know, for budgeting is I'm going to take the 200 units, I'm going to times it by my average sales price, and I'm going to times that by my average commission to get my GCI for 2025. My budget is based on my goal. That's scary. So I just want you guys to know that that's my revenue goal, because we can't take units to the bank. We can only take money to the bank. So now I have 200 units that say times $500,000, which is $100 million, times 3% is $3 million GCI. What's the goal? $3 million GCI at the end of the day. Like, so if I sell 150 homes, but I still hit my 3 million GCI, I'm fine. Right. Right. That's the goal. So I got $3 million, just so you know, you have your revenue goal. Now, as far as gap in units from year to year, that's just meaning we're not going to plan on our current roster improving other than our first year agents. Now, the third thing is the average first year per agent productivity. I'm going to add a margin of safety here. And the margin of safety I want to talk about is if I need 10 agents, okay, I need to plan on recruiting how many? How many do I need to bring on? So I say 40% here, 40%. So 40%, basically what I'm saying is for every 10 agents I have, only six are going to make it, right? They're not going to survive. And it might not be my fault. It could be part of the, some things outside of my control, the marketplace, their savings fund, right? Maybe they relocate, but you're going to lose people, right? So if I need a net gain of 10, I need at least 14, right? And some of you that you don't have a great onboarding program, you don't have great lead sources, you don't have a track record of getting people into production, maybe you need to recruit 100% more, right? So if you need to keep 10, you need to get 20 agents, right? So that's what this margin of safety is. For me and my company, I'm planning on a 40% attrition rate, right? So if I have 30 agents on my roster right now, if I don't recruit any more agents, I'm going to lose 12. So I'll be at 18 by the end of the year, right? But if I want to go from 30 agents to 40 agents, I need to make up for not just the 12 I lose, but another 10 plus another 40%. So it's 14. So I need to recruit 26 agents. Does that math make sense? So you have to look at your current roster and go, I'm going to lose 40% of them. And then you got to go, I got to recruit 40% more than I can retain in my first year, right? So now my recruiting goal is like 26 in the example I gave you for my team, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Um, Real quick before you move on, one question. I want to throw a variable out there. Full-time versus part-time.
oh my gosh. Okay, so here's my rule of thumb on full time versus part time. Okay, my part time agents cannot exceed 20% of my roster, and they're all on probate. They can only be on probation, or they can only be on part time for us for 90 days. There needs to be a clear transitional path to full time. Now, one clarification on part time versus full time. I don't hire part time anybody, but I do hire full time committed people. Many of my agents with massive success owned other businesses, had multiple jobs. I mean, think about who do you want on your team? Somebody willing to work two jobs or somebody only willing to work one?
I like the entrepreneurial candidate.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? So what I do, me, is I have minimum standards of what I call full time. Okay. So if you can make our meetings, if you can meet our prospecting and follow up requirements and turn in our reporting sheets, our weekly reporting sheets, you are a full time team member. If you can't do that, then you're part time and I won't even hire you. So if you have another job at the college or wherever else, can you make the meetings? Right? All right. Well, maybe you can't make the meetings, but then you can make the meetings in 90 days. Okay. Can you meet our prospecting and follow up standards, which for me is 10 hours a week, 5 hours of prospecting, 5 hours of follow up. Okay. 20 hours, 20 calls per hour. So I'm looking at 200, a minimum of 200 calls a week. Can you do that? Well, no, Nick, I work 9 to 5. Okay, fine. What about 5 to 7 at night? And what about Saturdays and Sundays? And so I will prescribe a Saturday, and I'll take a full time committed agent that is willing to come in on Saturdays and Sundays all day long. And I've done this with massive success where it's like, okay, Ben, you're going to join the team. You are going to come in on Saturdays from 9 to 12 and make phone calls and report back to me. And on Sundays, you're going to do XYZ. And at 30 days, we're going to look at your pipeline. And at 60 days, we're going to look at your pipeline. And in 90 days, we're going to look at your pipeline. And by 90 days, you should have a pathway and you should see the light at the end of the tunnel that you can give your notice and go full time. Right?
Yeah.
You're already full time committed, but your full time real estate career is the difference, right? So that's how I look at that.
That's perfect. And then also a perfect segue here to talk about the KPIs of an agent and the showing up part. And so with the KPIs, we talked about having, oh, hold on, my slide is gone. Hold on, I'm gonna go back here because I've got it here. So for the KPIs, number one was show up. Number two was get 2 Met consultations every week. Number three was add 5 to the database every week. Number 4 was 22-minute conversations every week. And number 5 was weekly self-reporting. And we gave several different examples that would count for this. It could be tech, and the form of a form, or it could be a text message or, some sort of group chat, or even more preferable for you, you like to go the paper at the sales meeting.
That's right. That's right. Do we have a slide on that, Mia?
We do, but it'll be more of a distraction for me to find it because so are we
Okay,
good to
good.
start?
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I want to touch on this because this could be a strategy. This could be a strategic initiative for your team right now. And that would be instituting clear KPIs, aka standards, in writing to the team and having a mechanism, hopefully a system, software or paper to acquire the data, and then a human being to review it on a weekly basis. If you don't have a human being reviewing the KPIs, you are not holding your agents accountable. I've yet to meet a human being that is willing to listen to a machine. For some reason, I think we revolt having technology tell us what we're doing. And I love these new tech companies with the leaderboards and the dashboards, and they tell the agents what they've done and what they haven't done. And I think they needed to have that visual, right? For sure. But if there's not a human being like, monitoring that or like reviewing it with the salesperson, I don't think it has anything to do with accountability. Right. So we were looking for, can you say that again, Mia? We're looking
Yep.
for attendance to the meetings.
Number one, show
Number
up.
one, show up. I'm finding team leaders are not having enough sales meetings and sales trainings on a weekly basis. Once a month isn't enough. So then you go once a week, minimum once a week in person. That's what I prescribe. And this could be a strategic change to your business where you've gone so remote, so Zoom oriented, right? You've made so many exceptions to the rule because you have so many part time agents doing other jobs that you can't actually hold a real training or sales meeting and hold your agents accountable to showing up because half your roster can't make it. That's a problem. That's why I say 20%. I need at least 80%. That's a KPI. I need at least 80% attendance rate of my entire roster at my trainings. Anything below that, I'm failing overall, right? That's my benchmark. And I know this over the last 12 years. I need 80%. I can never get 100%. Even if I made it mandatory, I can't get 100% because people go on
Right.
vacation, they have grandkids, they got showings, they got inspections, but I can get 100% self accountability and self reporting when they don't show up. Like I have a rule, Mia, like, you know, you show up to the meetings. If you can't, you let me know prior to the meeting. I can get 100% on that. Now, if the person that doesn't let me know they can't make it, right? I probably gonna have to let them go if they chronically can't show up. I don't care how many homes are selling. That's the way I run my team. I just can't have you around if I can't see you. I can't impact you. You can't impact the team. You're then because then what's happening is they're not meeting the core value standard that I have in place of my team. So regardless of how many sales you have, you're not meeting the core value, which is we pursue growth and learning. Well, if you're not showing up to meetings and trainings, you're not pursuing growth and learning.
I think
We
it's important to mention here that as the leader, you're modeling showing up.
mm,
So if you have that expectation that you want your agents to show up, you're showing up to the follow-up, you're showing up to inspecting that they are showing up, you're showing up to these meetings as well. And so you're going to get that when you model it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And we so once a week in person, in the in person meeting, that this is when my team you you turn in your weekly tracker. Okay, for Mia, that might be it could be a jot form you fill out. Right, a jot form could have your calls, contacts, appointments, met consults, add 5 to the data. Say those again.
So
Two
show up, 2-minute consultations, add 5 to the database, 22-minute conversations, and then the self-reporting.
self-reporting. So you guys got those metrics, right?
Yep, I put
You
them in the
you
chat as well.
you can have your own metrics, and that's a strategic initiative that you're putting in place. These are the metrics that we're going to have for the entire year. Because as a leader, you know, okay, if I have 20 agents do these things, it will result in 200 sales. So, what you prescribe there should be the metrics to hit your units goals. How many calls to get how many contacts to have how many appointments, how many appointments do you need to hit 200 units? So, you can work it backwards. So, if I wanted 200 units, how many appointments do I need to set? New appointments. Well, let's say 4 to 1. So, I need 800 appointments in 2025. Well, to get 800 appointments, how many conversations do I need to have? Well, maybe I need 7 conversations for every appointment. 7 times 400 is 2,800, right? 2,800 conversations, right? How many calls do I need to make? And then how many agents do I need to make those calls? So you can work those on your own, work those numbers a little bit, work your assumptions a little bit, and then know that you have to hold them accountable to those metrics individually to hit those goals. But it clearly is a point. I mean, Mia, it's all about appointments. It's all about those conversations.
Yes. The
Yeah.
lead measures.
Yep. Those are your leading measures that you're holding them to accountable to on a weekly basis.
That's right. And so that means that you have a simple way to measure it. Um, and I think we can touch on that when we get to key hires too, on how can I leverage some of the tracking of the showing up? How can I leverage knowing that we're getting 80% of that? But the KPI should be very simple. They should be very measurable and they should be very achievable. And I really appreciate that you acknowledge that it's not, again, we're not looking for 100% of that, but I can expect 100% communication, and you're staying connected as a leader to that metric. I think now I'd like to open up the conversation around setting the budget,
Mm-hmm.
specifically around marketing and payroll. And everyone, sorry, I had put it in the chat, but I was sending it to Nick and not to everyone, so I got that in there now. I'm gonna blame my sick brain on that one. I'm gonna take the out. So the 2 things, one, we'll dive into the marketing, and Nick, in the slides, I have this separated a little bit so that we can talk about the different percentages based on how well established the team is. So first, can we just talk about 10 to 20% of that revenue for marketing, and what that number is dependent on.
Yeah. So when I look at my when I'm budgeting, I look at growing into my budget. If I'm in growth mode, I'm taking on more risk, right? I need to probably invest in my business. It might be on a credit card, it might be on capital that I have in my savings or checking account. It may be a larger percentage of my commission checks coming in, right? But I'm going to be investing to grow into this thing. So, an established team, your marketing budget can be lower because you have a bigger database. So a lot of that has to do with your database and your referral network and the business that is proven and repeatable. I was talking to a team leader today about hiring Reside, and he had a database of 35,000. He was generating 300 leads a month through different sources: Google pay per click, Zillow, Google local service ads, and other media sources. And I said to him, "You have enough. We figured out you have enough leads to go to double your agent count from 10 to 20. And you don't need to increase your marketing budget at all because you have 35,000 leads that your new agents that you hire can work. We can reuse, repurpose, redistribute. Write it down. Repurpose, redistribute the leads that you already have." And that could be done. Maybe a strategic plan would be going back to the database and re-engaging the database in 2025 to bring them back to the website to have quality conversations with that database. And these are past clients or just web visitors, and then redistribute those to the new agents, or have the age setting up certain ponds so those new agents go after it. So for him, his marketing budget could stay the same. But if I had a database that wasn't as clean, it's not as clear, it's not as many past clients, and I don't have a lot of referrals, I need a new business. So the first part of my budget that I allocate of that $3 million in our example is towards marketing. So 10% as a rule of thumb, $300,000 I'm gonna earmark towards marketing. If I'm in if it the new team that says 10 to 20%, that's because let's say you're a $500,000 GCI team. 10% is only 50 grand. That may not be enough. 50 grand may not be enough to grow from 5 agents to 20 agents, because you might need just $5,000 a month just in pay per click, right? You might need $10,000 a month just for Zillow. So you could be a $500,000 GCI team, and your marketing budget needs to be a hundred grand, which is 20%, right? And that's okay. Here's why: if I was doing 500,000 and I was going to spend 100 of that on marketing, I'm going to work those leads so hard. I'm going to hold my agents accountable so badly. I remember being a team at 500,000 wanting to get to a million GCI, right? And I was buying pucker factor number 3, pucker factor.
You like
Pucker,
that?
pucker factor was high, right? Because I'm losing my booty. If we don't sell homes, I'm losing my booty, right? So um, I printed out this photo. I found this photo online. It was a toilet with money being flushed down it. So it was a bunch of $100 bills being, can you imagine this? $100 bills magically flowing into a toilet being flushed. And I printed that and put it in front of where I could see it every day on my desk, right in front of my monitor. And it was like, okay, all these leads that are coming, all these leads that I'm paying for, right? Unless I hold my agents accountable, unless we go out there and call them 7 times in 7 days or 7 times in one day or whatever, 10 days of pain, 21 days of gain. If I don't hold my agents accountable, then I'm just flushing money down the toilet. So it's okay to go to 20%. So go back to that slide on that growth real quick.
Yeah, and while I do that, people who are curious, where are you pulling that percentage from? Gross profit, revenue,
Total revenue.
total revenue.
So if I'm a $3 million GCI, or that's my goal, it's 300,000. Now, if my budget is currently $500,000 a year, I'm over, right? So let's talk about that for a second. So let's say Let's say I'm $3 million GCI and I'm spending 20% of my budget, so 600K a year on leads. Maybe I need to cut back on my leads. Maybe I don't have a lead problem. Maybe I have too. Maybe the problem with my productivity is I have too many leads. You could actually give your agents too many leads and dilute their effectiveness because they're only making so many phone calls. So do you want them to, would you rather them, if Mia's capable of 100 calls a week, looking at her reports, she only gives me 100 calls a week, right? If I give her 10 leads, it's going to be 10 calls per lead, right? If I give her 20 leads, right? It's 5 calls. If I give her if I give her 50 leads, it's 2 calls. If I give her access to a pond of 50,000 people, how many calls per lead? Less than one, 0.0001. So here's the problem with ponds. You only get 50 calls, 100 calls out of me, and you're gonna disperse those across 50,000. How about you just give if you can get 100 calls out of Mia, why not just give her 20 leads for the week and have her call it each lead 5 times? It will increase your conversion rate substantially and you will require less leads. So I love pawns because in theory it makes sense, but what you're doing is you're spreading out your effort across the widest amount of leads, and maybe it would be better to go deeper per lead in 2025. Ask yourself the question, should we go deeper per lead or should we go wider, right? So that's just a little bit of theory there. Now these are just rules of thumb. You got to look at your marketing budget, and it's really important. Um, the when I look at marketing budget, I am not including um, my servicing listings. So photography doesn't count. Social media posts for my listings don't count, right? What else on marketing? Staging. Those are more to me. Those are expenses.
Lateral.
Yeah, they're loud. They're a cost of they're the cost of doing business. It's not marketing. To me, the marketing budget is direct response. It's marketing that's generating leads. Now, I could allocate a certain budget towards open houses, right? To run open houses because they're lead generators. They're lead generators. So this revenue has to be going towards actual lead generation. Okay. And I for me, it's pay per click. It's Facebook marketing that's traffic that goes traffic to my lead conversion website. It's Google local service ads, it's radio, right? It's direct mail, it's email marketing, MailChimp or other sources. That's marketing to me because I'm actually generating leads.
Mentioned when we were preparing that, if you don't have a lot of money right now or capital right now, but you have a large backlog of leads that you could mitigate some of this budget. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. If you had a database, I mean, you know, you got a lot of leads in there that what if I looked at your database of 1,000 people, I'm going to ask myself, of the 1,000 people, how many of them live in my marketplace versus are relocating in my marketplace? Let's say it's 300 of 1,000, or 30% of my leads currently live in my marketplace. Awesome. Of the 300 people that live in my marketplace, how many of them own a home? Let's say half of those people own a home. Then, of the 1,000 people in my database, 150 of them own a home in my marketplace. I'm going after them because those are listings. Of the 150, what percentage of them will sell their home this year? 7%, right? So, of the 150, I have 11 to 12 listings. So, of the 1,000, I need to get those 12 listings. Okay. Now, if I have a database of 20,000 or 10,000, I got a lot of listings in there, don't I?
Oh, yeah.
Right? based on my metrics, 11 listings per thousand, right? If I got 10,000, that's potentially 110 listings in my database. Whoa. If you can get 110 listings out of your database, then what are you doing other than emailing that database, calling that database, and finding out who owns a home in your marketplace? I did this. Um, John's told the story in 2023. I wrote 285 emails to my database, 285 personalized emails to my database with one sole purpose. And this was a strategic, this was intentional. It was strategic because the market flipped. It went from 3% to 7%. I had to lower my budget. I went from spending $20,000 a month on Zillow to zero. Well, I couldn't just cut my budget and expect to sell more homes. So I wrote emails. I wrote 285 emails. And I spoke to everybody like they were a homeowner because I was trying to figure out who was a homeowner. Right. So I was like, hey, Mia, interest rates went from 3 to 7. I anticipate inventory to rise too, which means there's going to be more competition and a suppression of homes. Do you know what your home's worth? Click here to find out. And then I would send them to my home value website because if you didn't own a home, you would never click that. If you did own a home, you would click that.
Right.
And so they would go to my home value and it would just tag them as a homeowner. And then if they're in my marketplace, I would call them, right? I think I listed around 100 homes that year just from
Wow.
those emails. Yeah.
Wow.
100%.
Email
It
marketing is not
saved our
dead,
life.
people.
It
Email
saved,
marketing.
yeah.
So good. Can we talk about now that we've kind of established some of that? And I do the pucker factor thing, I had to put it in there because I thought it was really important for people to understand that you're going to be overextended and that it's not I see this with team owners a lot where they kind of want to set it and forget it, but you had to get so in there. Like if the agents weren't picking up the phone, you had to pick up the phone. You had to really be the one to convert the lead so you didn't see that money just go down the drain. And so, just be prepared to be a little overextended when you have a big goal ahead of you.
Yeah. Yeah. And be smart about it, but know that that tension is good and that urgency is good from the team leader. You shouldn't, there's this like, I shouldn't have to tell my agents. Okay. Well, guess what? You're going to have to tell them.
You didn't say it 7 times.
You're going to have to nudge them. You're going to have to remind them. You're going to have to group text them. Like I had a lead come in I've been seventh level, which means I haven't been in production for 7 years. A lead came in yesterday and I noticed it. And there was a team member that didn't get on it within 15 minutes. Everyone here has a standard of speed to lead, but are you holding them accountable to speed to lead? It had been 6 minutes. So I asked him to call him. He didn't call him. So I group texted the lead and him at the same time. And guess what? He was on it like that. Right? That's accountability through action. Instead of me telling him to call, did you call him yet? Did you call him that? Have you called him that? How'd it go? I was just like, I'm just going to group text both of them at the same time. Hi, it was Shelly. Hi, Shelly. It's Nick. I'm introducing you to my agent. We look forward to working with you. And my agent was like, oh, hi. How you doing? Can I call you in 5 minutes? So it's just these little things that really make a difference. Now I don't have to remind my agent to do that next time because he knows if he's not on it, there might be a group text coming.
Yeah. That's accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, can we talk about payroll? And then we've got about 10 minutes to wrap up on key hires. So with payroll, one, I want to talk about ops staff and
Yeah.
how much of the budget should be allocated to them. And then also talking about the nuance of the market, determining, what that percentage might be. And then also how do we incorporate looking to the units to know exactly how many people I need.
Perfect. So now I'm looking at my overall budget for the year. So I got my gross revenues. I have my marketing budget. I'm hoping it's right around 10%. Then I want you guys to look at your units. So my goal is to sell 200 homes in our example, but it could be 1,000. What does my staff need to look like to meet 1,000 homes? What does my staff need to look like to meet 200 homes? Zero based budgeting. Zero based budgeting. Build that company out right now to fulfill that. Don't look at your current roster. Don't tell me about your 12 VAs and your social media manager and your marketing manager and all these other people. I want you to zero base it. Build it from scratch. What will it take to sell 200 homes? To fulfill or service 200 homes? 200 homes you can do with an executive assistant and a transaction coordinator. I'll tell you that right now. You really only need two full-time admin to do that with the right systems in place.
Yep.
500 homes, you might need a ops manager, a listing coordinator or two. If you're high on listings, maybe one or two transaction coordinators, 4 people, right? At 500. So zero basic, what does it look like? Now look at your current roster. You might be overstaffed. Some of you, I'm noticing this at Reside and talking to a lot of people that are looking to hire Reside, that they're overstaffed. That's a whole different discussion. Whole different discussion. Now look at what your staff should look like and look at the marketplace. What would it take to get a great person in that position? Not a good one, a great one, right? And that's market based, right? I'm looking for 3-to-1 employees. Okay. A good person will fulfill the role and responsibilities and the duties. A great person will go above and beyond and outproduce a good person 3-to-1. Okay. A great person will cost you 20 to 40% more than a good person. So let's say a good admin, a really good admin, maybe not really good, a good admin, they do the minimum is $50,000 in your marketplace, right? 20% more would be 60,000. 40% more would be 70,000, right? So if I offered $70,000 per marketplace, I might be able to find a 3-to-1 employee that will rock your world. Truly amazing person just for a little bit more. So it's a huge ROI. I'm getting 3-to-1 for only a 40% bump in pay. If you think you can go to your current staff and give them a 40% bump in pay and they increase them 3-to-1, no, that doesn't, no, it doesn't work that way. See, what a lot of people do is they give raises expecting more money, more production out of them. I don't know. Now,
They've already shown you.
now they've already shown you, Mia. However, Mia, if you have somebody that's great and you're paying them good, you better pay them great. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. So I'm not saying don't give raises. I'm all for it, right? Mia, you work with me, right? Like when you're great, we gotta retain you.
You are what you are preaching, you live by.
Okay.
And but I would say for all the people that we work with in our organization, they have that level of output.
For sure. Oh, 100. We have
Yeah.
Reside is unreal. Sanita and I talk all the time, like behind your guys' back. We're like, after our team meetings at Reside, we're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe we get to work with these people. All right. So I'm going to look at my payroll that way. I want my payroll not to exceed 20%. So let me break it down for you. If I'm running a team, 100% revenue. Okay. Gross commission is 100%. If I'm out of production, my cost, I have to pay my agents. That's 50% is gone, right? That leaves 50%. Well, my marketing budget is 10%. So now I'm down to 40%. My payroll's 20%. So now I'm down to 20%, right? And I got expenses. So I'm probably a 10% profit company, right? Now, if I can get my payroll to maybe, let's say 15% or even 10, or let's say 15%, if I can get my marketing budget to 7.5% with a loan, maybe with a mortgage officer or something like that. So payrolls, 12.5, marketing 7.5, that's 20%. 100%, 50% goes to my agents. 15% goes off of there. Now I got 35% remaining, and maybe I got 15% expenses. Now I'm a 20% net profit company. That's pretty healthy,
Yeah, very.
right? Okay, that's work. You got to work these numbers a little bit. Maybe your comp plan 60% is going to your agents, and then you only got 40% remaining, and your marketing budget is 20, and so you only got 20% left over for payroll. Well, your payroll is 20%, so you're not zero, and then you got expenses. You're negative 10.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the top again. I got 100%. Maybe I can get my comp plan to be more like 45% to the agents. That leaves 55%, right? And my marketing and my payroll, is more like 20, right? That leaves 35%. And I got 10% in expenses. Now I'm a 25% net profit company. That's really, really good. Like
That's really
fantastic.
good.
In my experience, the most I've ever been was close to 30% when I in that 4 or 5 plus GCI range, 5 million GCI range, right? Um, as you're lower, anything below 1.5 million revenue, your margin is going to be really, really tight, but they're going to look okay because you're in production. So you're still in production. So usually you're in production until about 2.5.
Good.
We don't have
Um,
any more time though.
I know, and I do want to talk about key hires. But we have it's pretty simple here, but before we do, just in case, um, we do have another webinar coming up that I want to make sure that we talk to everyone about before we dig into the key hires, that a lot of people are asking about with the TCPA changes on January 10th. Here's the QR code, and then the here at the bottom, the resideplatform.com/TCPA change or /TCPA changes. Preston is going to be going over everything you need to know, and I just want to make sure I market that before people need a bounce. Um,
But you
okay,
know what? I thought I had a 11 o'clock. I actually have a little bit of time if people have questions,
yeah,
but
I'd love to just if you got to go, you got to go. But I would love for you to unpack the executive assistant hire first, and I think that a lot of people overthink this one, and I'm good on time too. And then the TC and LM on, that can be one person for a while, and then after that, who do I hire? Is it an ISA? Is it a sales manager?
yeah, that's the progression I'm looking at. And a lot of teams as they've grown over time, they lost their executive assistant, or the executive assistant had morphed, and the team leader, top producer, no longer has someone working personally for them. So let me break that down for a second. Mia, you're building a team. You're a top producer. One of your first hires is an assistant to leverage you, to assist you, to take notes, to help you produce at the highest level, right? And then you decide to build a team, so then you turn your assistant over to the entire team, right? You're like, "Hey everybody, join my team and you have access to my assistant." And then the team leader no longer has a personal assistant, because your personal assistant is now the ops manager for the entire team. Does that make sense, Mia?
Yes.
And then the team leader is still in production and still running the team, and they become overwhelmed, they become overworked and scrambling because they no longer have someone that is dedicated to them. So if you take anything away from this, you may need to hire an executive assistant for you. I hired an executive assistant this year because I realized had lost mine, because I had developed them into key important people within my organizations. And that's great, but I never replaced them. And so I have an executive assistant that is helping with me with all of my businesses, my property management business, my investment business, Reside, my coaching clients, my real estate team, and also just my personal life, making sure my bills are paid, making sure my car's maintained, making sure all of these things that I was doing at night are taken care of. Right. So the key hire is an executive assistant for you, the team leader, CEO, owner of the company. That executive assistant, if you're doing less than 100 deals a year, is going to do TC work for you and listing management work for you and the team. When you start going over 100 units, you're going to need to either replace your executive assistant or hire a TC, transaction coordinator, and an LM, listing manager. They're going to do both. When you start reaching 150, 200 units, you're for every 50 to 100 units, you're going to add another person. A really good TC can handle, up to 30 transactions a month. They really can. They really, really can. I don't recommend you pay TCs per transaction. I don't recommend you do it. I don't think you should outsource that either. I think that when you start doing over 200 transactions, that's an in-house thing, right? That's an in-house thing because you want to control it. You want to control the experience. As they get better, you want that experience to stay with the company as capital, right? If you're outsourcing your TC work and that TC is getting better and better and better, you're not getting the labor efficiency of that TC getting better. That other company is. Same thing with ISAs. If you're outsourcing ISAs, you're making their ISAs better, right? So bringing it in house as someone gets better, you should be the one getting the what is called labor in economics is called labor efficiency, right? They're getting better, so they can do more with less effort and less materials and less resources. So that's number two. Number three is okay. The TCs and LMs are doing a great job. I don't need to add more because we don't have more listings and we don't have more TCs. I mean, we don't have more transactions. We're not getting more listings and we're not getting more transactions. We can fulfill that business easily. So what do I need? I need more business. Well, how do I get more business? I can hire an ISA to convert more leads, to help my agents convert more leads, or I can hire a sales manager to go recruit more agents. Notice that I didn't say I hire a sales manager to hold my agents accountable to sell more homes. The first rule of a sales manager is that sales manager needs to be recruiting agents to the team. The second rule is getting them into production. Okay? So know that. That's really, really important. One thing I failed to mention at the beginning of this, and when it comes to budgeting for marketing, is um, how much of your marketing budget will you put towards agent recruiting and hiring? Agent recruiting and hiring, right? So if I'm running Indeed ads, monster ads, hiring ads, how much can I allocate to advertise that I'm hiring? Okay, it's a competitive world out there. The people that are not in real estate looking for careers are being marketed to by the healthcare industry, the pharmaceutical sale industry. All these other industries are vying for the same person. You're in competition. You got to advertise to them, right? So I would put some money behind it, 100%. And money behind it might be creative things like benefit packages. There's a new trend right now with benefit packages where instead of health insurance, let's say there's an executive health clinic in town that has a membership model. Have you seen these, Mia? Where there's like for $200 a month, you can have access to their clinic, which you can have office visits,
Yeah,
consultation.
there's a really good one, Title Health in Wilmington, that I used actually. They did more
Yeah,
homeopathic stuff. I loved it.
yeah, for sure. It's more homeopathic stuff,
Mhm.
right? But it's really preventative
Yeah.
versus yeah. And for me as an employer, I'm really that's one of my strategic things this year is like putting into place uh, benefits like that, where you have access to this clinic that is um, it's up to you, right? But I think it's aligned with my core values, how I live too, right? Health and wellness, so things like that. That was a little tangential, big time, but it's something I've been thinking about. So yeah, that's when you go to ISA Summit. One thing we want to point out, right, Mia, that's not on the key hire list is social media manager,
Mhm.
marketing manager. Okay. John believes this, and I believe it too, because I'm, a pupil of John Cheplak, is the CEO team leader, you are the chief marketing officer. You need to be marketing. I see it detrimental to a lot of teams. They delegate marketing way too early. You can have marketing help, but you shouldn't get rid of marketing to the lowest competency person that you can find. And it's often the youngest person they can find. Oh, you're young, you must know social media. No, no. If they can't tell me who Dan Kennedy is, Gary Halbert is, if they can't write ad copy, then no, right? And quiz them on it, you know? They can execute marketing really, really well, but we need you on video. We need you writing the emails. We need you reviewing the PPC ads and picking out the budget and figuring out what areas to go after. We need you to do that. So the key hire is not marketing. I think a lot of people's payrolls are bloated because they have too much going out to marketing on social media that's going nowhere, that they can't actually show me a sale came from it, right? I coach a team that does 600 homes a year, and they have like no market. They have no marketing budget. They get on Mojo Dialer and they make circle prospecting calls every single day, and they run killer open houses, and they circle prospect the open houses relentlessly. I'm talking like 30 open houses. I'm crazy. This is crazy. Like 10 open houses every weekend, and then 30 agent circle prospecting every weekend. I mean, don't overthink it, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Talk to more people.
all right, Mia, you're wonderful. You're amazing. Thank you for
So are
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of those insights and all of those awesome nuggets. If you guys want more information, we will be sending out the replay link. I believe it'll be the same link as it was to register. It'll end up on the same landing page. And then it is January 24th, coming up for the TCPA changes. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Nick, thank you so much for all of your insights. You're amazing. And we will see you guys at the next one.
Awesome. Take care.